Good morning. It is good to be with you again on a Wednesday morning. This has been an interesting Christmas. We had COVID in the household, and for the first time in I guess almost 20 years, I wasn't preaching on Christmas Eve. It was strange. And I did attend our Christmas Eve service up here in my little corner of the kingdom, and I am so grateful for the people who led it. So grateful for those people who led it, and it was a great night. But I really missed being able to lead that service. I missed being able to preach the fourth Sunday of Advent, which was this past Sunday. So, Shanda and Aaron and Javi, Pete, William, Emma, who led the service, then my worship committee here at First United Methodist. Y'all did such a great job, and I appreciate it. Just wish that I could have really been there. I was there sitting in the very back pew, with a mask on. But I seem to be better now. Yeah, I did have COVID last week. Seem to be much better now. Feel okay. And I think I'm about over it. But I didn't want to talk about COVID. COVID gets depressing. We've been dealing with this for 3 years now or more. So this past Sunday morning, if I had been able to preach on Sunday morning, I definitely could not have done 2 services. I definitely could not have done that. If I'd been able to preach, I would have been reading from Isaiah 9. Isaiah 9, 1 through 7. So here's how this goes. And some of this will be very, very familiar to you. But there will be no gloom for her who is in anguish. In the former time, he brought into contempt the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali. But in the latter time, he has made glorious the way of the sea, the land beyond the Jordan, Galilee of the nations. Or it could also be translated Galilee of the Gentiles. The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Those who dwelt in the land of deep darkness, on them has light shone. You have multiplied the nation. You have increased its joy. They rejoice before you as with joy the harvest, as they are glad when they divide the spoil. For the yoke of his burden and the staff of his shoulder, the rod of his oppressor, you have broken as in the day of Midian. For every boot of the tramping warrior in battle tumult, and every garment rolled in blood will be burned as fuel for the fire. For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government shall be on his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and of peace there will be no end, on the throne of David and over his kingdom, to establish it and to uphold it with justice and with righteousness, from this time forth and forevermore. Isaiah 9, 1 through 7. If there's one passage which just screams Advent, it's this one. For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder. And his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father. It screams Advent. It screams Christmas. Every time I read that, I can hear the magnificent chorus from Messiah, from Handel's Messiah. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given. A magnificent chorus, one of the most memorable choruses of that magnificent oratorio. But that's not the whole text. We focus so much on those last couple of verses, and rightly so. But what comes earlier? From Galilee of the Gentiles, or Galilee of the nations. And the Hebrew word there could be translated either way, Galilee of the nations or of the Gentiles. Where did Jesus come from? Yes, he was born in Bethlehem of Judea, just a few miles outside of Jerusalem. But where did he come from? He came from Nazareth. And if you're not familiar with the geography of Jerusalem and Bethlehem, Jerusalem and its environs are down here. Galilee is up here in the north. Galilee of the Gentiles, good Jews, particularly pious Jews in the Jerusalem area, tended to look down on Galilee. Galilee of the Gentiles, they called it. That's where the Gentiles were. The Jews, there might have been Jews there, but they're not as good as we are down here. Jesus came from Nazareth. He was born in Bethlehem, but he grew up in Nazareth. And he was referred to as a Nazarene. Where was the bulk of his earthly ministry? The bulk of his earthly ministry was up here in Galilee. Capernaum was like an unofficial home base for his earthly ministry. He came from Galilee of the Gentiles. He didn't come from Jerusalem. He came from Galilee, Galilee of the Gentiles, and went to Jerusalem late in his ministry. And then we have this one. For as in the days of Midian's defeat. Midian? Who in the world was Midian? What in the world was Midian? You have to go back to Judges to pick up on that one. Do you remember the Midianites? Do you remember the Midianites? The Midianites, they were the people that were oppressing the Israelites. One of the peoples who were oppressing the Israelites during the days of the Judges. And Gideon, the judge named Gideon, arose to deliver the Israelites from the hand of Midian, the Midianites. And how did Gideon win? This is one of the wonderful things about the Bible, particularly these Messianic prophecies, is they seem to be connecting this and this and this from all over the places, from all over the place, and focusing them in here on a manger. Whereas in the days of Midian's defeat, how were the Midianites defeated? If you remember how Gideon defeated the Midianites, a gold star for you from the preacher. God gave Gideon several different things he had to do, and each of the things that God told him to do were intended to weed out his army, to narrow his army, so that when it was all said and done, Gideon only had 300. Gideon only had 300. With which he is going to face an entire army. And if you go back and you read from Judges, Gideon doesn't actually take 300 and charge the Midianite camp with swords and spears. If you want to see how that happens, go back to the book of Judges and read how it is that Gideon defeated the Midianites. Go back and look at Judges, see how that happens. That's not a Gideon thing. That is a God thing. God took the most incredible, like unpredictable way, and he defeated the Midianite army. And so what Isaiah is saying here in Isaiah 7 is that the ultimate rescue of us all is going to be something on a par with and even greater than the days of Midian's defeat. The ultimate rescue of us all is a tiny child, a tiny child that is born in a cave, lying in a manger. Now Herod the Great is with this frightful and frightening bloodthirsty king, is sent into fits of rage, not by a would-be king marching into Jerusalem. No, this mighty and frightful king, Herod the Great, is sent into fits of rage by a baby, a tiny child born to a scared, unwed teenage girl. The most unpredictable thing imaginable. The most unpredictable thing imaginable. A baby born in a cave, lying in a manger, born to a frightened, unwed teenage girl, far from home. And it is this that God chooses. It is by this that God chooses to step into human history. Through our through these weeks of Advent, our sermons were all around one theme, and protagonist. The idea is that God is intervening in human history, that God is stepping into human history and will be the protagonist. If you envision human history as a play, you envision human history as a play, that God writes himself into the script and is going to be the protagonist, the main character. When God writes himself into human history. For unto us a child is born, to us a son is given. A tiny child, born in a cave, lying in a manger. Far, far from home, to an unwed teenage girl, scared and 100 miles from home. It's the strangest, most remarkable, most wonderful thing imaginable, and yet it is something that is so typical for God. That is a God thing. With that, I've enjoyed our time out here with a second cup of coffee, and I will look forward to seeing you in worship here in my little corner of the kingdom this coming Sunday. Have a great rest of your Wednesday.